This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. This is the Lansing Online News Radio Show with Bonnie Bucqueroux and Bill Castaneer. For those of you who are near a computer and who aren't hiding in the basement because of the severe weather, you can also tune into LansingOnlineNews.com and watch our live webcast at the same time. But Bill, you're going to try to get people out here. And what night is it this week that we have an author coming into town? Everybody needs to know.
Thursday evening, and his author's name is Josh Mallerman. He's a debut author. But most people in mid-Michigan and people who are into indie rock will remember him as, or he is the front man for the rock group High Strung.
Okay.
And they've got a really good buzz going. They play pop rock and roll, but real kind of Beatles feel to it.
Melody, lots of melody.
Lots of melody. He's the chief songwriter for them, but he is originally from Bloomfield Hills, and then he came to Michigan State University where he met a fellow band member that formed a group here in East Lansing, and then they all sang. There's four band members. He didn't know the other two at the time. They all moved to Brooklyn where they met up with each other. They formed a band. And then they moved back to Michigan. They toured, I think, for almost 10 years.
Really? Wow.
They're very successful. I think
Wow.
I think they finally realized they don't want to tour anymore, and they're just doing studio work. But Josh Mallerman's book is a debut book that was sold at auction, which I said in my story in City Pulse that's coming up, that it's like akin to winning the Grammy or being nominated for a Grammy. It's a big deal to have a book sold at auction, because it usually at least goes for six figures.
No, yeah, because you got competitors trying to get their hands on it.
And it's called The Bird Box. It is psychological horror thriller. Something's out to get these people, but they do not know what and how it does it. The only thing they know is if you see it, you go insane, you kill other people, and then you kill yourself. So it's the apocalypse.
Wow.
What everyone does is wear blindfolds.
Oh.
And finally, the entire, I guess they're in a safe house, this one group of people, and what happens is they're running out of food, and this one young woman has twins. She calls them boy, girl, and she knows that the only way they can survive is to go down a river. They discover that, and I'm not going to give that away, but she has to go down a river blindfolded with her two twins blindfolded.
What a bizarre story.
It's very bizarre.
Wow. So you've had a chance to read it?
Oh, I've read it. It's good.
It's good?
It's Stephen King.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It's a young Stephen King, maybe middle-aged Stephen King.
It sounds wonderfully visual.
It is very visual, and he's got some surprises waiting people who come to his book reading that probably people have never done before. His whole band's going to be there for one thing.
Oh, wow.
But he's going to do some things to get people into the book. The reading is at 7 p.m. at Schuler's Eastwood, and then he is going to go after that over to Mac's Bar and do a gig.
That's perfect.
It's
that's
going to
great.
be cool. And I think people around here went to MSU and are in that age of about 35 to 39 will remember him. And
what publisher finally went out?
Let me tell you, Echo, which could be Harper. Yeah, it's an imprint of HarperCollins. And he immediately following that got a movie. Deal. And it's a signed deal with a producer, which means it's probably going to happen.
Oh, that's fantastic. Boy, that sounds great.
It should be interesting to have a movie about someone blindfolded.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm not sure how that's going to go, but I think it'd be fun. It's going to be a great night.
Oh, that's wonderful. So that's Thursday evening, and it starts out at Schuler's at what time?
7 p.m. and then moves about probably around 9 p.m. to Mac Bar.
Yeah.
Mac's Bar.
Sounds good. Maybe I'll grab my trusty video camera and try to get there. I'm going to go down to the Capitol on Wednesday at 11:30 in the morning because the Moms Against Guns are going to be down there rallying at the Capitol, provided that the weather is good by then. We're going to get, I guess, 5 to 7 days of cold weather again, so we're going to lose our wonderful summer sunshine, but that's another event coming up this week that people might want to know about. I'm sorry for all of you who missed my party on Saturday where I got to paint my car. Bill was a bit horrified, I think, as many other people were. No,
because I'd seen your other car painted.
Well, that's true. That's true. But this is more freeform, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty.
It is. It's very pretty. We took spray paint and Great Stuff foam and put Great Stuff foam all over the back of the car. And the last time I did that to a Saturn, and I covered the whole roof, and it looked like exploded pink and blue brains. But what I didn't know is if you put this insulation on the top of the car, all the moisture gets sucked inside. You almost need windshield wipers on the inside of the car. So I'm trying to figure out. I'm afraid to put it on the hood for fear the engine will explode. So
What I didn't know is I thought you just got rid of that car. It stayed in
oh
your family for like years.
yeah,
I
somebody.
did.
Yeah, my brother-in-law actually took the gunk back off the roof and
Yeah.
drove it for quite a while. I mean, people say, "Oh, it was like it's the day before you're going to take it to the trash bin."
Mm.
No, no,
Mhm.
no. I'm hoping for another 10 years out of this car, and I figure I can get many new layers.
All I could think of is Ken Kesey and the electric Kool-Aid acid
Yes,
test. This
there's
was done with no assistance of drugs. I was there.
yes, you were true. Yeah, yeah, it was all done on, in my case, on orange pop.
Yeah, orange pop and heavy winds.
Oh, yeah, that did. I did get some of that spray paint in my
So
lungs.
maybe
That
there
kind
was.
a little, yeah, it could have been not so hot. But talking about staying in shape and doing things wonderful, our first two guests this evening, I'm really excited about this. Rena Risper, who is the publisher of the New Citizens Press, and her friend Yvonne LeFave, and I ran into Yvonne on the way in and got some Instagram photos. So I'm gonna, if you're on Facebook, you will see her little Go Green car.
It's so cool.
And now this is the way that you are now delivering your newspapers around
Well,
town?
what we decided to do was because of the fact that individuals are always talking about the ecological footprint that newspapers have on
Yes.
society. We
Me,
decided,
I'm one of them. I'm one of the worst. Yep.
and it's okay because you can use the newspapers for many other things.
But it's the trucks that carry them around.
It's the trucks and it's the fumes.
Yeah.
It's all those other things in my opinion that go along with it. I truly believe that newspapers really assist our young people in reading. I was so surprised. Today I went to go pick up my children and I had to run an errand and my 11-year-old was in the back seat reading the newspaper when I came back. And I didn't, he was not prompted to read it. So I find all of these little interesting things that occur that normally would not occur with just social media. I think we have to have an interesting mix of both. Um, However, in the downtown area, we chose Go Green Trikes to deliver the newspapers in the downtown area. As you know, it's so congested during the daytime. You have to stop. You can't find a parking spot. You're wiggling around, and why not? I mean, it's a great opportunity for us to cut down on that footprint and make us look really cool too.
Yeah.
Hip, hip.
Very, very hip.
The
And
Go Green trike is orange though.
it is. It is orange, and that's one of my
Orange is the
favorite.
new green in this case.
Exactly, and I just, um, it's really interesting because you always, I always felt kind of innovative from
Yeah,
the
you always
beginning.
have been.
When I first started the newspaper, I had the two babies.
Yes.
Nobody wanted to write for me, so I directly went to the internet.
Yep.
So mostly all my writers were from the internet. That was unheard of. It was all Associated Press and all these other people. And if you weren't AP, then you were nothing. Which I was like, whatever, folks. It's all the same information. So it's been 13 years.
That's amazing.
It's been 13 years. I feel amazing, and when Yvonne came to me with the idea, I was like, you know what, that sounds like a pretty cool idea. Quite possibly, I'm hoping that she picks up other delivery spots in the downtown area so that she can also maybe do some deliveries for some other stores in the area that need things to be dropped off and delivered on the way and around to whomever in the downtown area.
I could see a regular circuit.
I could see a regular circuit myself. So just working together on that. I think we're probably the first newspaper in Michigan to have a bicycle downtown delivery
That is so
service.
cool. We've got to try to get you a broader press here so that everybody knows. Yvonne, what I wanted to know too was where did you find out about these trikes? It's sort of like a rickshaw, isn't it?
And yeah, it's a little more than that.
Okay.
It's kind of like a recumbent trike and a VW Bug got together, and this is kind of the
Ah.
result, kind of thing. But I first heard about that particular one, the ELF is what it's called, through a Kickstarter program. And so I got it for half of what it's getting now, cost wise. Yeah.
And you say that the bike weighs 150 pounds.
Weighs 150 pounds.
So-
It'll hold 350 pounds.
Wow.
Where's it made?
Durham, North Carolina.
Durham, North Carolina.
Yeah,
Now,
it's a
on
small
Kicks-
company called Organic Transit.
on Kickstarter, you invested in it
Yes.
early on.
And so if you put in enough, you got one of the first ones off the
Yeah,
line.
That's right,
access to it.
exactly.
That's
How
kinda
long
cool.
ago
Yeah.
did you get yours?
July. So
Oh,
it's almost a year.
wow.
Yeah.
And you say it has an electric assist to get up hills.
It
It is
does.
3 wheels.
Yep, it's a tricycle.
It is a tricycle.
Right.
What other kind? I mean, how fast can you get that little guy going?
It can go up to 20 miles per hour for
Wow.
up to 20 miles.
Wow.
So not too bad.
And
Yeah,
there's also these solar panels on top.
that's right. There's a solar panel that will recharge the electric assist.
In Durham, North Carolina, not here.
Not here, right? You're
Well,
gonna
I'm
be,
sure that she'll get a little bit out of it.
Oh, yeah.
So
who was it? The guy who talked about people with, thighs, this like cantaloupes, You're gonna be in great shape as you do all of this. What about in the winter? What have you
It's a
discovered?
seasonal sort of thing,
Okay.
or at least the service will be.
Okay,
so
so you're
yeah.
looking at
May
probably
to
May to
November.
November.
May to November,
Yeah.
okay. And I saw it parked on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
right? So what are the rules of the road? Where do you get to go and
Yeah.
not go?
Well, legally, it's considered a bicycle in all 50 states. There's a
Ah,
federal statute that says low-speed electric vehicles should be considered a bicycle, and that no state laws can supersede that. So anywhere a bike
How did
can
that law
go-
get passed?
Boy, that's great.
It's been a while.
But that's a niche then that is gonna, that's
Exactly.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I think
So,
we're gonna see a lot more of this. I could see florists and all sorts of other people,
oh, sure.
or, that are even, delivering to offices, even food deliveries, that kind of
I
thing.
could
Yeah.
actually see her creating a relationship with Bellins. It's right around the corner,
Ah,
and it's so easy to maneuver. You can't even ride a. It's so complicated trying to move a truck downtown.
yeah.
And then
Well, you
you
look at the State
park it in the
Journal is
middle of-
busy jettisoning its downtown office building and getting rid of its presses. I mean, and its trucks. I mean, it's no longer feasible. I tell my journalism students, if you went to a bank today with this plan about how you were gonna put up this big marble building and hire all these people and have all these trucks and these presses, they'd laugh you out of the office. You have to be creative.
You know what's so interesting for me is that we're actually growing,
Yes.
which is a really interesting space to be. For us, it's about doing the innovative, speaking about the innovative, speaking about people that normally do not have an opportunity to get into the press.
Voice to the voiceless.
Exactly. It's you can go online and while and the thing that really prohibited me from going AP because I wanted to go AP in the beginning, but the cost was
It's prohibitive.
it was prohibitive, and I had these 2 babies. I'm trying to, it's really interesting. I was just talking about Conrad Parrish, who used to own the Metroplex newspaper, and he passed away in a car accident. I was just talking about him on Saturday. He was like one of the first pioneers in African American newspapers. I currently keep reminding my readership to just say my multicultural newspaper because I'm actually Caribbean American and I had to learn everything about being
With a little of other things blended in.
with a little of everything blended in. So I had to kind of learn about African American culture in Michigan per se.
Right.
I didn't even know where Arkansas was for crying out loud, let alone some of the foods, and so I had to
Motown
learn
music.
Motown. Nah, we're more into Marley and
Yeah,
the
reggae.
Elephant Man and
One of the other things is that
Soca.
tonight Rena brought first 2 issues for Bill because the Made in Lansing program that the Historical Society is putting on, you brought some of the early issues I mean, 13 years. When you started out, it's evolved through so many different kinds of
It has
metamorphoses.
definitely evolved through different metamorphoses. Imagine being a woman with two babies
Yeah.
and starting a newspaper. I was bullied quite a lot, but it's it's been interesting. I think that I love to collaborate.
Yes.
I found that collaboration is so much better than trying to argue an issue with individuals. Now, even gets more interesting is that we get writers and letters from all over the state. Now, because we're so, we're online, we get so many hits online and social media. I have probably about 16,000 unique individuals on social media between all of our Facebook pages, including our nonprofit. And
That's right. That's new. About a
it
year and
is
a half
new.
ago. Yeah.
As you know, with a newspaper, people will always ask you to do things.
Yes.
You have the Cancer Society. Um, you have things like the sarcoidosis individuals, and then you go into the diseases that impact blacks, and that would be like diabetes, sickle cell
Sickle cell.
anemia, and everyone's asking you to do something. And I just decided that I was going to start my own nonprofit and do what I wanted to do, which was help families of murder victims deal with um,
Trauma.
literacy. Literacy. We do poetry in the city every year on the Capitol steps and give out dictionaries and
Yes.
college dictionaries and college thesauruses to families. None of those little bitty ones. Because no matter what you do, you have to grow into a dictionary and you have to grow into a thesaurus.
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7, and here in Lansing, we're talking with Rena Risper of the New Citizens Press, and also talking with Yvonne LeFave of the Go Green Trike here, and talking about Rena's newspaper, TCNP, which you can find online, and you can also find for free. I think alternative newspapers, because I mean, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today was that we saw a lot of the local news organizations in some ways struggling to keep up with the news that was happening with the online Broadcastify scanner, with Facebook, with Twitter. Trying to chase breaking news is difficult, and it is the kind of thing that the traditional commercial press does, and nobody ever does it very well because there's all the misinformation along the
It
way.
is so amazing.
But that's not your niche.
But it's not my niche. But if something's happening, I'm getting a call at 4 in the morning.
Oh, I'll bet.
If something's going on, anything, I will know about it. Who, what, when, where, who's the cousin, who's the mother, who I need to speak to. And that because I don't follow, that's not my niche.
Right.
That's how I started the New Citizens Press Community Action Network Stop the Violence
Yes.
portion of it.
I came down and videoed at the club, level 3, when you were handing out bouquets and honoring the families of murder
We're
victims,
still doing that.
and to try to recognize the trauma that goes on and take a preventive role. And rather than chase around trying to follow the incidents as they're occurring, you have a different role to play.
I do have a different role to play. Not only do I have a different role to play, but all the other individuals who were involved help me.
Yeah.
All the people who come to me with those problems regarding the diseases, I get to hand that information out to my client base because I tell you what, I think they become some of the illest people because of the trauma that they are going through. And no surprise to Yvonne, but sooner or later she'll be involved in teaching my young people who are part of my group about being ecologically friendly and dealing with reducing recycling, and because that's how I originally met her.
It's true. Well, I met you when you came to the School of Journalism, and we talked about what you wanted to do with your expand your publication and do things. And You were looking for new approaches. And one of the things I wondered about is when is Poetry in the City going to be this year?
Poetry in the City is every third Thursday in July. We're going into our 8th year
Wow.
You do that on the Capitol
on the
steps.
Capitol steps.
And you've had a thunderstorm almost every year.
Every year. And you know what? People stay all the way to the end, and the Capitol knows that I am not stopping until 9 o'clock. And we have everyone always waits. We end as soon as the church bells start to ring, and when the church bells start ringing, we start, and when the church bells start ringing, we end. And it's been a fantastic experience for a lot of the students. We have I am a mentor to Miss Shawer's journalism class, and 5th grade journalism class. And one of the students moved to Chicago, and her father let her call me to thank me for, getting her involved with poetry. So that has been a really interesting space for me, as far as poets and reading and writing and the sources. And
One thing that, just as an observation, this is kind of a throwback to what newspapers were 150 years ago. A lot of them
Right.
supported social causes, and then it evolved away from that, where they were sort of supposedly neutral.
I taught a class last semester, much to the surprise, I think, of some of the people in the administration, because I sort of snuck in a class on that included advocacy journalism, because we hear so much about how you have to be completely fair and unbiased, and all too often, if you're not careful, you're just doing stenography. You're taking quotes from one side and quotes from the other, and leaving people in the dark because too much is PR and not enough is what's really going on. And I mean, I can't see a problem with helping the families of murder victims. I mean, clearly that's a pressing need in this community.
it's really interesting. It's so interesting that we started doing. I mean, I can't believe how creative I've become. I've started doing PSAs
Oh, good.
on them, and one of the cases were reopened as a result of one of the PSAs, because we have a young man whose a mate was pregnant with his daughter when he was murdered, and he's never seen his daughter before. So I we just do really good things with our families. As newspapers, we get things instead of, you know, we're sending an entire family to go see WWE in Kobo, so that they can just have a good time and enjoy themselves.
I wanted to do a video with Big Perm. He was with you in one of the last times
Yes.
that you came down here,
Yes.
and he had lost his friend Notch, and he talked very movingly about that. And then we lost him.
And we lost him to heart and
Yes.
stroke, and that same year. And another thing I really like to explain to people is the newspaper is for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not a black newspaper. It's
Right.
for everybody. But what I love the most about it is that we have the ability to get this group that usually doesn't read newspapers to read them and become socially active.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this 22 to 30-year-old group that had maybe 100 people walking for the Heart Walk,
Yes.
which was really, it wasn't a business, it wasn't a corporation, it was just people who got together for the sake of donating in Perm's honor,
Yeah.
which probably would not have happened if we didn't have this kind of like organic mix of individuals who just got together for the purpose of celebrating the life of someone who was always there for other people. We still have him featured every time we march. Every 4th of July, we're the Stop the Violence group. In the 4th of July parade, we usually have 100 or more people. And this year, we're teaming up with the Homeless Angels. If you have not had them, if you have not had them on, you need to get them
Yes,
on.
absolutely.
They are an amazing
One of my
group.
students did a story on.
They're an amazing group, and so that's another one of our issues that we deal with, because we have homelessness as well. That's a whole other issue when you're dealing with poverty, poverty, crime, homelessness, illness. It seems to all
Well, the
kind
group
of
that
be,
lives by the bridge always makes you lunch once a year.
yeah.
Are you getting ready to do that soon? I'll come out
Well,
in video when you do.
Well, because I was homeless at one point in time, I still find myself in going to and talking to people, and I oftentimes surprise people because I now own a newspaper and I wear a suit, but I have no problem sitting down with anybody and talking to anybody about my experiences being homeless, especially now with uh, the various issues. I sometimes think to myself how I'm supposed to do this, because how amazing is it to me that I didn't get caught in sex trafficking as a
Right.
14-year-old runaway in New
Yeah.
York City
Oh, God.
on 34th Street, homeless inside the Long Island Railroad section at 14 years old, and I'm just absolutely
Port Authority is
amazed.
still the Port Authority.
Port
isn't it?
Authority is still the Port Authority, and I'm now as a conscious thinking adult, I
It's
cannot
amazing.
I cannot even believe how much was going on. We just did a story on that in our last edition. We posted online. It was written by Dr. Daryl Green, who's on the police department, and I'm trying to help, but I'm trying not to do too much with everybody. But just I have these emotions about all of these things,
Yeah.
which I can actually be able to relate to, and I think that that's where we're getting away from with the media is not being able to make. I think stories should be able to make you relate. It's like that's what they should do. They should make you relate. They should be social for you. They should make a change and make you see.
Well, let's bring Julie Duesing into this conversation because this is a perfect opportunity.
Absolutely.
We're going to have to double up on the microphone here and cozy up in order to be able to share the mic, and we do have to be real close to it. Julie is with, she's here to, we've been focusing on the issue of Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's is a topic that the New Citizens Press is going to be writing about very soon. And last week we talked a bit about the warning signs
Oh,
and what you need to be alert for. But Julie, how can we expand on that and help more people in the community understand what the challenges are with Alzheimer's?
Well, I think that there are, first of all, to be educated on what are the warning signs, what are those 10 warning signs, be aware of those. And then it's important for those people who are family caregivers to really know and understand what that means. We sometimes say it's more like a 36-hour day instead of a 24-hour day because caregivers have an extremely stressful situation in caring for their loved one with this disease. From the point of diagnosis, someone can live an average of 8 to 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's a very long, very expensive disease because many times people cannot remain at home in the later stages. Their families just cannot care for them
We've
in
had
those later
difficulty in the
stages.
culture, I think, dealing with long-term care issues.
Right.
And I think maybe it's because we know that we have this bulge of baby boomers going through
That's
the
right.
society, and that if we really do accept the responsibility to take care of all of them, it's going to be very hard to find the resources to do so.
That's exactly what
families
the
are
dilemma
struggling.
is. Families are struggling. And when you think about it, I always say it's like a tsunami that's waiting to happen. And it's the boomers that are going to precipitate this. As we age, this is a disease that is the biggest risk factor is age. So as we age, there's more and more and more need for geriatric physicians, for neurologists, for people who have been trained and understand the disease, for folks who can do caregiving, professional caregivers. I'm not talking about family caregivers right now, people that can come into the home and help the families care for folks. And doctors aren't necessarily going into, in medical schools, going into geriatrics. So we're seeing such a need right now.
What is the
for-
point at which someone has to leave their home or living with relatives and go into a facility? What are the hallmarks that you reach that point and that's the transition you have to make, or is it an individual diagnosis in each case?
I think it's really very individual. There are a lot of people who have made the promise, and
Mhm.
the promise is that they are going to keep their loved one at home because their loved one wanted that,
Right.
and they promised that to happen. And I stress to families over and over and over again, you're going to walk around feeling guilty because at some point
You're gonna break your
probably
promise.
exactly.
Ugh.
And so there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of issues that are around that very question that you asked. And I think that it's really important for families to really know and understand what are the community resources that are available to them, because they don't know and understand, number one, what is the disease? What can they do to get help community wise? What
Mhm.
are those resources?
Mhm.
And then being willing, one of the jobs that I do on a daily basis is to help families put together a care plan. And I don't do a normal care plan. I do, let's do a bite size. Here's 1 or 2 steps. When you get that done, call me back and I'll
I
be
see.
happy to help you with step number 3 or 4, whatever it is. And many times our conversation goes back to, do you think it's time that you need to look for placing your mom or your dad or whatever? It's a very, very gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching decision for many families.
This is
And
SCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. Bill, you had some.
Well, first, we may have talked about it in the preceding show, but I have a family member that has Alzheimer's, a brother-in-law, younger than I am. And one of the things I'm an observer, not a caretaker. And one of the things I've observed is that the first thing you should do is contact an organization that you represent.
And the name of that again is?
We're the Alzheimer's Association.
Okay.
Easy to find
Easy to
online,
find.
alz.com.
.org.
.org, right.
.org.
But I think that helps you get ahead of it a little bit. Though you can never be ahead,
Right.
but it helps you get some expertise, because I think you're right. Doctors don't know as much as they should about this.
Well, a lot of them, I always say primary care physicians have so many things that they have to know about. And this is a disease that primarily is geriatric related. Now, as soon as I say that, I have to backtrack and say, I know a gentleman in Adrian, Michigan, who was diagnosed 5 years ago. He's 35 years old and he is in the late stages. So I think we have to be very, very careful that we don't think of it as Alzheimer's, which people joke about, because it's really not. The risk factor goes up
Or
with
dementia.
age. Yes, and dementia is just the umbrella, and Alzheimer's is 70% of all the dementia
Or
that's
just
out
the
there.
things that happen when old people get old.
Right.
Some people just put it into that category and really, instead of really looking at the overall issue. And that's a lot of what happens in the African American families.
Absolutely.
And the reason why people are not looking into getting the proper help that they do need. If you have someone who's been doing the same thing for 25 years and all of a sudden the coffee pot becomes the garbage can,
Right.
there's a
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
And those little
right.
things, someone might say, well, he's just getting old, but we do have a tremendous responsibility, all of us together, us in the media. And I am seeing that alz.org is getting out there, which is one of the things that I'm helping with this year, to get more information out to the African American community and beyond. And because I belong to both, I'm West Indian, so the Latino community and the African American community both need to understand what these, I think there's 10 things.
There's 10 warning
10
signs,
went
which
through
you
those
did
last
last,
week,
last
yeah.
week.
And they, so if any of the listeners are out there and you didn't listen last week, please go out to alz.org and look at the warning signs and just check and fight for your family members. That's the
Well,
one
and
thing.
you have to be an advocate.
You
And,
do.
this is a great segue into one of my very next Know the 10 Warning Sign programs that I'm doing for the first time will be part of our diversity outreach pilot. And we are going to, I'm going to give a little commercial right now, but we're going to Union Missionary Baptist Church, and we are doing a program this Wednesday from 11:30 until 1.
This
And
Wednesday?
this Wednesday, and it will be right here in Lansing, and they are opening it to the public because they feel that it's very important not only for their African American congregants, but also for the public at large to really know and understand this disease. There are a lot of myths, lots of falsehoods out there that we can help. The whole program goes into a myth and then the fact, the reality of it. So just what Rena was saying is very much part of what we try to do in our educational programming and processes. And then we follow that. Next month, I'll be back at that same church doing the basics. It's memory loss, dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. Just giving people kind of that basic structure. What is dementia? What is memory loss? What is Alzheimer's?
Can people do any kind of advanced financial planning? Should they be thinking about that? What age should they be thinking about that? Because it seems to me that it's so hard to know.
There's a lot that can be done. People can look into long-term care insurance. That's a very important piece that a lot of people think, oh, I don't need to do that. Oh, I don't, I'm not that old yet. Well, the sooner you do it, the less expensive it is to
Except you pay
purchase.
for more years.
Except you pay for more years.
You're paying the same amount whether you
Probably
actuarial.
when so
The
it
problem
is
I
kind
have
of
with it
juggling
is,
that.
when did we decide that we wanted to privatize this into a profit-making insurance company? That quite honestly, the policies aren't very good and they're very expensive.
They're very expensive, and you have to be very, very careful how your policy is written. I used to work for a non-medical caregiving company, and so many of our clients were so excited. We've got long-term care insurance, da 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 da, and I would say, we will need to take a look at this. Does it specifically state in-home care?
That's a scandal.
Because if it doesn't,
That's a scandal.
we cannot come in to help you
Right.
under that policy. So there's a lot that we need to educate folks on.
It's
In
been a better
terms of-
investment for the people buying stock than it has for the people buying the policies.
But there are organizations as well. I know one, DRM, who you can buy gift certificates for hours
of
of
caregiving.
caregiving.
Yeah.
DRM Genesis.
You can buy hours of caregiving if you want to go shopping or do something special with your family. And I do believe that the caregivers, they deserve their own day.
Which we have, which was the
you do?
caregivers retreat that I just where I was on the Lansing committee. It's an entire day of pampering for family caregivers. It was in March, I believe it was the 21st, 27th, somewhere in through there. We do that every year. It was I think our 7th annual this year that we've been involved as the Alzheimer's Association and many other companies and businesses to give that very thing. Our family caregivers have a very difficult job, and they need a day. I'm in charge of the upstairs at Eagle Eye Golf Club, the upstairs massage therapy relaxation station.
And they need
so
it.
I have 20 massage therapists that I line up, and it is all free of charge to these family caregivers. So that's another little plug for next year. We're always looking for companies and people that would like to be involved in pampering our poor family caregivers.
What's the primary question you get asked? I mean, if there's one question that comes around to for the first, when people call you and you get in connection with them, what's the first kind of question they're asking you?
It depends on the person. If they've been on our website, they already know something about the disease. If they haven't, many times it's that they want to know about the disease, some of what to expect, and then what should some of their steps be. And when people have been in the caregiving role for a period of time, it's really important that they learn to take care of themselves first, because if they don't, they're not going to be any help to that person
Exactly.
with the disease.
If they
I've
collapse,
watched
the whole system
over
goes down.
and over and over.
Yeah.
The person who's doing caregiving has not taken proper care of themselves, and they pass away before their person with the disease.
Oh,
I've watched that happen more times than I want to
Really?
talk about. Yes. And that's why, for me personally, one of the things that I stress when I'm on calls with these families and with caregivers, what are you doing for you? We talk about what we can do for their person.
sure.
Now, let's talk about what are you doing for you? How are you holding up? What are you doing? I talk to people about things like being a healthy caregiver. What does that look like? You know, being present in the moment. Enjoy this moment, because you don't know how many more of these days or moments you're going to have, especially while there's still some cognitive abilities that are still left. A lot of other things that I recommend are doing projects together. Figure out what can that person still do. So many families lament, oh, they can't do this, they can't do that. But wait a minute,
What
what
can they
can
do?
they still do? Let's flip
Yeah.
it around, and maybe it's folding clothes.
Ah.
I've told many stories of taking in the basket. You know, honey, would you help me today? Would you fold these clothes for me? And
Ah.
they can remember how to fold clothes because that was learned way long time ago. They fold the clothes and you thank them profusely. They feel like they've been helpful. They have a purposeful feeling of accomplishment. You take them in the bedroom. You dump them on the bed, close the door first, dump them on the bed, mix them all around, take them back out, say, you know what, here's another fresh load, and just let them feel that little sense of accomplishment. Doing projects together, you're making dinner. What part of it can they still do? Can they tear up the lettuce if they're not able to chop anymore, if they're not able to do those things? If you put the plates and the silverware, the napkins out, can they still put them around the table? Maybe with some cues, they can still do some of these things. What happens and what's so heartbreaking is when families just sit them in front of a TV and, you know, that's their babysitter. And, you know, we really, you know, need to be able to help families think about all of these different ways that they can help with caregiving.
My husband helped with when his father was in late stage Alzheimer's, and it is a very difficult disease. And his wife, I know, I mean, one of the things that I thought was so good in this digital era is that my husband could go to your website, and there are just enormous resources there
Oh,
to
it's
really help
unbelievable.
people.
I
And
tell people, be careful, disclaimer, if you get on there, you can get
You
lost
can
for
get
days
lost
in it.
in it.
It's pretty amazing what's been put together on one location.
It
He's
is-
done an
it is
incredible job.
he felt
amazing.
like he was able to train himself because he really didn't know. I mean, his dad was in Florida, and he would go down there and he would spend hours on the site learning things and figuring out. Because originally, I think a lot of people find themselves arguing with the person or trying to say, "Oh, no, 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 you
That's
just told me
right.
that."
Divert attention.
Yes,
I mean,
all of
do
the,
something
and you
else.
have a wonderful,
Right.
anybody who hasn't been
Right.
to the site who's in that situation
Is-
needs to go there immediately.
I also think that it would be a good idea for the Generation Xers to actually go out and look and see why maybe we used to think our grandparents were crazy. And I had a great grandmother who I actually thought was just crazy, but after reading all of the signs, she had Alzheimer's.
She had Alzheimer's, and we called it hardening of the
Arteries.
arteries or
Right.
senility.
And we
or-
really need to really start focusing now on the education of the baby boomers more,
and even
and the
younger.
Generation Xers, the Generation
Absolutely.
Yers,
That-
just because
yeah.
we we treat people the way that they treat us, and we don't really look at what might else be going on. So I think that it's a good idea for people of all ages to go out
I
to
can't believe we haven't
the
met
website.
before because it's like you're just giving me perfect segues into the next thing. I do want to let people know that we have something called YPALS, and it's YPAALS, and it's Young Professionals Alzheimer's Advocates of Lansing. You have to be 40 or under to be part of this group, and this group meets once a month, and they put together outings in the community to help caregivers, to help residential facilities, to join us on our Walk to End Alzheimer's at the Capitol building across the street. I mean, it is an amazing group of under 40s who are out there helping to educate their peers on this disease and how they can be actively involved in educating others and raising funds to find, do the research to find the cure.
We have
I
to.
mean, I'm so passionate. I could go on and on and on about all these things, but you're right. We have to educate not only the older generations, not only the adult children, but the grandchildren that are now seeing
Yes.
grandma and grandpa with this disease and wondering what was it or what is it or what's going
can't
on.
It's
remember
not, we're
my
not
name.
holding these things secret anymore, and that's great.
It's wonderful.
that's true,
There's
too.
really, you know, a lot of celebrities. You know, Glenn Campbell has done his final tour. He's now moved into a long-term care facility. Those of us who were rhinestone cowboyers and love that music, you know, he's an icon, and they've stood up as a family. Pat Summitt, who is
Pat
the
Summit, she's
vol-
young, early onset.
the Vols, she is. She's very young, and her family's been very, you know, the basketball coach, Tennessee. You know, it goes back to President Reagan and how outgoing
That really, I
they
think,
were.
was a watershed.
It was just a turning point for us to remove the stigma. You know, when it has to do with the brain or mental health, there is a stigma,
Yeah.
and we have to get beyond that if we're ever going to get people rallied around finding the cause for this horrible disease and finding the cure. And in my lifetime, my passion is that we will find that cure. That's what I'm all about and why I do what I do.
Julie, this is just the beginning of the discussion here. We plan to have people, you and other people from your organization back frequently. I'm so glad to see that Julie and Rena are now.
Sometimes, the serendipity.
The serendipity.
I
on
know,
something.
this was just
Might go
wonderful.
out.
I mean, and I want to talk to her more because
you
we
can-
are
you can-
doing our diversity outreach pilot. And I need
Yes,
some
and
more
maybe
help there.
maybe I'll grab my video camera and go down there on Wednesday, and
There you
we'll
go.
start doing
Thank
that
you.
as
There you
well.
go. You're
And this
welcome.
is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. This is Lansing Online News Radio. And we're going to segue into now and we are joined by Representative Lynne Martinez, who is going to tell us a little bit about some forums coming up on the issue of foreclosures. And Eric Schertzing, the county treasurer, is busy now. He's running for the 8th district. And so he's busy doing all of that kind of thing, and but he's still participating in these forums, and they're coming up. And tell us a little bit about what they're accomplishing and what the schedule involves.
Thanks, Bonnie. It's great to be here to have a little bit of time to talk about this. We are doing 4 forums in May, and actually the treasurer, Ingham County Treasurer Eric Schertzing, created this before he knew he was going to be real busy being a candidate. And
That's why he hasn't been doing his monthly visits here. He's busy organizing.
he
Yeah.
is doing a lot of that. We're calling this Neighbors Guiding Neighborhoods. And what we're trying to do at this point is to reach out more into the community. You know, we're hearing a lot on the radio now that for the numbers of mortgage foreclosures are going down. And the treasurer's office deals with tax foreclosures.
That's a different.
And
Yeah.
that's a different picture. And over the last several years, the numbers of tax foreclosures hasn't been decreasing. It's been holding steady.
That's what I've been wondering about. Yeah, we
Mhm.
haven't seen the
Yeah,
decline in them.
there's always 2 sides to that. We only hear one side usually.
Right.
Yeah, the media reports generally come from places like Realty Track, and so
Ah,
they're recording mortgage foreclosures.
I see.
But the issue in Ingham County is that the tax foreclosures are not going down, but the resources to deal with tax foreclosed homes are decreasing.
Oh, they are.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's not good.
over the last about 3 or 4 years, the Ingham County Land Bank, of which Eric Schertzing is also the chairman, has had the opportunity to bring in substantial federal funding through the Neighborhood Stabilization Program to demolish blighted properties and rehabilitate and resell some others and put other and do all of that through the land bank. Well, those neighborhood stabilization funds are disappearing. They're greatly decreased.
Whoa.
And so the treasurer now has this year an inventory as of March 31st of about 290 properties that the treasurer foreclosed on.
Mm.
And so the question we are taking out into the community, because a substantial number of those properties are within the city of Lansing, the questions that we're taking out into the community is, what do we do about this? What does the
Right.
treasurer do about this? And, the treasurer has some limited options. They can sell some of these properties at auction. They can, on their own, demolish them and take them off the tax rolls and then turn them as abandoned property over to the land bank for holding, or they can turn a certain limited number over to the land bank for disposition, that number being much smaller this year than it has been in the past
Because of lack of resources.
because of lack of resources. But the issue of vacant and foreclosed properties in the neighborhoods is not going away. And the problems that they cause with vandalism and animals and nefarious behaviors and
Declining
all of
property value,
Depri-
quality of life.
all of those issues.
It only takes one season for a house to start looking ragged when someone's not living there.
Yes.
It-
yes.
It happens very, very quickly. And so we are reaching out into the community with 4 forums in 4 different neighborhoods where we have pretty high incidences of tax foreclosures to just bring people information about what is going on and asking if they have particular properties that they have issues or ideas about, and if they have opinions in general about auctions versus some other disposition versus and
Short-term
home
sales and-
ownership
Short
versus
sales, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that
And for some elders, some part of the answer might be reverse mortgages. But the issue that we're dealing with is after short sale is available for mortgage foreclosures,
Right.
not for tax foreclosures.
It's a done deal when it's a tax
And
foreclosure.
by the time it's foreclosed, it's a done deal. So we still are doing a ton of work on foreclosure prevention.
What are
I
the-
think that though people
Give
really
them a
need
mic
to
so nobody.
I think that though people really need to understand what the differences are, because when they see a house that's boarded up, it's automatically belonging to Ingham County.
Right.
So I think that during some of these meetings that you have, to really make the distinction between mortgage foreclosure and tax foreclosure.
They are, but one of the
because-
questions I have is that we see so much development going on. And if you're giving away property tax rebates to build new lofts, that you're not going to be bringing in resources to be able to have these kinds of services and government services. You have to be very careful that the existing housing stock, I mean, as that declines and doesn't bring in tax dollars, it can be a real downward spiral and communities can begin to decay. You can't just have a sort of elite, nice housing units that are new and fresh, and then declining housing stock elsewhere. Maintaining
All
that
of which
balance is
is
a
true.
challenge.
And to answer Rena's questions a little bit, we're trying really hard to give people exactly the kind of information that you are seeking. We have a PowerPoint that explains step by step the difference between mortgage foreclosures and tax foreclosures. We have maps about where all the tax foreclosed properties are in the city and their nearness to people. And so we assume that if they're talking about a vacant property and it's not tax foreclosed, that they're talking about a mortgage foreclosure.
I was just asked this question at a school. While I
Excellent.
was sitting in a school office, I was just asked this question about my area because I live right where the Abigail house is, and they're putting in new houses. And then on my street, there's several houses. One, and I don't know what's going on with them. And then down the street, there are two other houses that are just kind of like partially demolished, and one house was just demolished. So we, and the school is Mid-Michigan Leadership Academy, and it's right there. And you have all these young people, all these young families that you can actually go to and explain what's going on, so that they'll want to move into our neighborhood. Maybe pass out some information to Saphir Shuttlesworth, who is the superintendent of the school, so that she could possibly explain to her, her students and their parents what's actually going on. And that, in a way, will, bring more people into the neighborhood, and give them more positivity. I think sometimes when we're looking at our housing stock on my block, I'm just like, why can't this house is so beautiful? Why isn't anyone living there? And those two houses at the bottom have been partially demolished, and then I'm thinking, well, I'm
We
hoping.
just had some people from your neighborhood come to a forum that we had at Cristo Ray Center last week. And they, in fact, talked exactly about some properties on Willow Street and the School for the Blind. And I
When
don't,
will the upcoming one forums be?
well, we have another forum this week on Thursday, and it's at the Rio Town Station, the refurbished train
Oh.
station, just south of the Board of Water and Light PowerPoints, new power
It's a
station.
beautiful
Yeah,
facility.
that cannot be missed.
And it's that plus all the information you're going to get from the forum. That's a winner. Everybody should come.
So it's exchanging information, but also listening to the community if they have ideas about.
It's a
here.
conversation.
Okay.
One of
And,
the things
we call it Neighbors Guiding Neighborhoods because we mean it. We need help from the neighborhoods
Yeah.
on this question.
We had an interesting conversation with Eric about why do people allow their home to go into tax foreclosure?
And how it escalates.
And how it escalates, and he wants to get at the essence of that. And that's really a difficult thing to dig out, other than the obvious, it's money. But sometimes there's different roots to it that they're not explainable. Why even people who have the money don't pay their taxes.
Yeah.
So you have.
They are very complex questions.
So you have the one this week. How many more are there coming up?
We have one this week, and then we have another one. Our final one is on May 29th, and that's at the Let's Community Center.
Okay.
And the events, we open the doors at 5:30. We provide sign-in and a light meal for people. We have a program that runs from 6 till 8, and we promise to get people out by 8. And we are creating a report of things that people say to the treasurer and to the land bank during these forums, because they will both be there.
Good.
About where we should be going in the future, and we will be creating a little report that we will release to stakeholders in the community.
And can people go for more information about how to register, how to let people know they're coming?
They can go to the treasurer's website.
All
The
right.
treasurer has all of this information posted at his website.
Just
And
Google Ingham County Treasurer, and Google's gonna take you to the treasurer's website. I know that because
Yes.
I've done it many times.
you can also go HTTP,
Yep, www,
yeah, tr.ingham.org.
okay, tr.ingham.org. Those are great opportunities. We want to thank all of our guests this evening. We want to thank Lynne Martinez, Yvonne LeFave, Rita Risper, Julie Duesing. We'll be back next Monday night. This is Lansing Online News Radio. You've been listening to LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing. Next week, we're going to be talking with Bob Pratt about water safety, and there'll be some surprises there for you. We'll also talk with Federico Martinez about some issues in the Hispanic community, and we're going to be talking with Vic Hansons of the Human Solution about some of the challenges with medical marijuana. See you next week. And then go right up to the end.